He smirked inside the courtroom, holding a diamond ring meant for his mistress, while his wife sat across from him, silent and broken. To him, the divorce was just another deal, another victory to add to his empire. But what he didn't know was that the woman he betrayed had been quietly preparing a truth powerful enough to destroy everything he'd built. Within minutes, the judge would expose his lies, the mistress would turn against him, and the millionaire who thought he owned the world would lose it all. This is the story of pride, betrayal, and the shocking twist that left a courtroom in silence. The courtroom was so quiet that even the ticking clock on the far wall sounded like thunder. Every seat was filled. Reporters, lawyers, and curious onlookers waiting to witness the end of one of the city's most talked-about marriages. At the center of it, all sat Richard Hale, a man used to winning. His dark-tailored suit looked sharp, his posture confident, and on his lips rested a faint, arrogant smirk. He didn't look like someone attending a divorce hearing. He looked like someone attending a victory parade. Across from him sat Evelyn Carter Hale, his wife of 10 years, a woman once praised for her kindness and intelligence. But today, her face told another story, one of betrayal, heartbreak, and quiet strength. Her hands trembled as she held onto the divorce papers, the same hands that once built his empire with him. Richard leaned back in his chair, bored, twirling a small velvet box between his fingers. Inside it lay a diamond ring, not the ring he'd given Evelyn when he promised her forever, but a new one, meant for his young mistress, Claire. When Evelyn's eyes fell upon the box, her breath caught. That same hand once slipped a ring on her finger, promising love and loyalty. Now it played with a symbol of betrayal, right in front of her. He noticed her staring and gave a smug smile. "Don't take it personally," he whispered across the table. "We've both moved on." "Moved on?" Evelyn wanted to scream, but instead she sat silently, her dignity stronger than her pain. Richard's lawyer leaned toward him and whispered something, making. Richard chuckled softly. "Let's finish this fast," he muttered. "I've got an engagement dinner tonight." The words sliced through Evelyn like a knife. The man she once sacrificed everything for, her career, her time, her dreams, was ready to toast another woman before their marriage was even legally over. When the judge entered, Richard adjusted his tie confidently, flashing that same cold grin. He thought he'd already won. But if arrogance had a face, it was his that morning. And if karma had a schedule, it was about to be right on time. Because what Richard didn't know was that this hearing would be the day everything he built began to collapse. 10 years earlier, Evelyn Carter had fallen in love with a man who had nothing but dreams. Richard A. Hale wasn't a millionaire back then. He was just a passionate young entrepreneur with big ideas and an empty wallet. While others laughed at his impossible plans, Evelyn believed in him. She invested not just her money, but her heart, her time, and every ounce of her energy to help him succeed. They were a team. While Richard pitched projects, Evelyn stayed up late, creating designs, balancing finances, and drafting proposals. She was his backbone, the reason his business took off. And when success finally came, it felt like a victory they both earned. They bought a beautiful home, traveled the world, and built what everyone called a perfect marriage. But slowly, the man she loved began to change. Fame and money didn't just boost his confidence, they fed his ego. The same man who once brought her flowers now brought excuses. "I have late meetings," he'd say. "Networking is important, Evelyn." Those meetings turned into luxury events filled with models, influencers, and champagne. One evening, Evelyn saw a magazine cover that made her heart drop. Richard, smiling beside a young woman in aired gown. The headline read, "Real Estate King and His Mystery Muse." That muse was Claire. Evelyn confronted him, her voice trembling. "Is she the reason you've stopped coming home?" Richard didn't even deny it. He just smirked and said, "You wouldn't understand, Evelyn. You live in the past. Claire fits my lifestyle now." Those words destroyed her. But instead of begging or crying, Evelyn made a decision that day. She would leave with her pride intact. She packed her bags, took one last look at the home she helped build, and walked away silently. What she didn't know was that Richard had already started moving his assets, hiding money, and plotting to erase her from his empire. But the man who thought he was outsmarting his wife was about to learn that a quiet woman remembers everything and strikes when no one expects it. The moment the bailiff called, "All rise," every sound in the courtroom disappeared. Judge Naomi Graves entered, a woman known for her calm tone and sharp eyes that saw right through arrogance. She took her seat, scanned the room, and nodded. "You may be seated." Evelyn sat quietly, her eyes focused on the wooden desk in front of her. Her heart raced, but her face showed nothing. Across from her, Richard crossed his legs casually, flashing his confident smile at the judge like this was another business deal he'd already won. His lawyer stood first. "Your Honor," he began smoothly, "this is a straightforward case. My client, Mr. Hale, built his company from the ground up. Mrs. Carter had little to no involvement in his financial affairs and seeks assets she has no rightful claim to." Richard smirked, nodding slightly, as if the words were rehearsed just for him. But Judge Graves didn't respond immediately. She flipped through the stack of papers on her desk. Bank records, property deeds, company registrations. Her expression shifted. Slowly, she raised her head. "Mr. Hale," she said, voice steady, "these financial transfers, they were made after your wife filed for divorce, weren't they?" Richard froze. "That's standard business procedure, Your Honor." Her eyes narrowed. "Standard or strategic?" "Because, by law, any movement of shared assets after a divorce petition can be considered concealment." The courtroom murmured. Evelyn remained still, her eyes fixed on the judge. Judge Graves continued, "And according to these records, the company Carter and Hale Designs. The trademark and original business registration still list Mrs. Evelyn Carter as co-founder and co-owner." Richard's lawyer shifted nervously. "That must be outdated information, Your Honor." "No," the judge said sharply. "It was renewed last year by Mrs. Carter herself." Richard's smirk finally vanished. For the first time, he realized the game wasn't going his way. Evelyn didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The truth was beginning to speak for her, and the man who thought he was untouchable was starting to crumble in silence. Just when Richard thought things couldn't get worse, the heavy courtroom doors opened with a sharp creak. Every head turned. There, standing in the doorway, was Claire Bennett, tall, elegant, and visibly furious. Her high heels clicked against the marble floor as she walked in, her eyes locked on Richard. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Even Richard's lawyer froze. "Miss Bennett?" the judge asked, puzzled. "Do you have business with this case?" Claire lifted her chin. "Yes, Your Honor. I believe I do." She approached the bench, holding a sleek black folder. "I have evidence that might clarify Mr. Hale's financial activities." Richard's face turned pale. "Claire? What are you doing?" he hissed. Ignoring him, Claire handed the folder to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Graves. Inside were printed screenshots, text messages, private emails, and confidential documents. The courtroom went silent as the judge read. "Mr. Hale," the judge began slowly, "these appear to be messages between you and Miss Bennet, discussing transferring company shares in exchange for personal favors?" Gasps filled the room again. Richard's lawyer buried his face in his hands. Claire folded her arms. "He promised me 20% of his company if I helped him hide his assets and keep quiet about it. But when I found out he was lying to me too, I decided the truth belonged here." The judge's tone hardened. "Mr. Hale, this is not just unethical. This is fraudulent. These documents will be turned over to the authorities for investigation." Richard slammed his palm on the table. "She's lying!" he shouted. But Claire wasn't done. She took off the diamond ring he had given her, walked up to the table, and threw it down in front of him. The ring bounced once and rolled to a stop near Evelyn's feet. "You told me I was your future," Claire said coldly. "Turns out you don't even have one." The once arrogant millionaire now sat speechless, surrounded by the very people he had tried to use. And for the first time, his smirk was gone for good. The courtroom was completely still. The air felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for what would come next. Richard sat frozen, his confidence gone, his once perfect composure replaced by panic. The same man who had walked in smirking now looked small, powerless. Judge Graves sat quietly, reviewing the evidence once more. Every click of her pen made Richard flinch. Finally, she looked up, her voice calm but firm. "Mr. Hale," she began, "this court has reviewed your financial records, the concealed transfers, and the testimony provided today. The evidence clearly shows deliberate asset manipulation and unethical conduct." Richard's lawyer tried to speak, but the judge raised her hand. "Enough. I've heard more than enough." She turned to Evelyn. "Mrs. Carter, you stood here today with grace and integrity, despite the disrespect and deceit you've endured. This court acknowledges not only your legal rights, but your moral strength." A few reporters began